In the conquered Hall of Aurelian was carved from the bones of a collapsed sun, its walls formed of gravity, bound crystal hung with the power of 1,000 stellations. Here galactic history bent. Empires were born, erased, rewritten with a signature or a scream. Today, the rulers of the galaxy had gathered to decide the fate of humanity. They sat in tiers, ancient, vast, and human. The Serathi dominion court in pools of liquid metal. The Chorvol floated as radiant lattices of light, and the Carexos kings loomed in armored carapaces, bearing the scars of wars that ended species. And at the center alone, on a platinum sat human delegation. No war forms, no psychic amplifiers, no visible weapons. Just 6 humans in dark formal attire, hands folded, faces calm. Whispers rippled small through the chamber. They looked small, frowning, desperate. Humanity's expansion had been inconvenient. Their colonies multiplied faster than projected. Their fleets were oddly efficient. Their refusal to submit to protective governance had irritated the old powers. So the galaxy had called for peace talks, or so the invitation said. The first speaker of the Serathi leaned forward, its voice resonating like grinding planets. Humanity stands isolated. Your trade routes are strained. Your borders contested. We are prepared to offer peace. Conditional, of course, a hollow projection bloom. Red lines cut through human space. Demilitarization of outer systems. Shared governance of key colonies. Technological oversight. The chore of all chime harmonious and gold. You will be protected. You need not fear extinction. Akar King clicked its mandibles in what passed for amusement. You should be grateful others were not given this courtesy. The chamber watched the humans closely, waiting for anger, for pleading, for cracks. The human spokesperson, a woman with iron, gray hair and eyes that had seen too much, listened without interruption. She did not take notes. She whispered her aides when the last demand faded into silence. She nodded once. Thank you. She said softly, that was all. No counteroffer. No prod has voiced. No raised voice. Confusion stirred. Finally, the Serathi speaker hissed. Do you accept these terms? The woman stood, so did the others. Chair slid back in, unison, quiet. Final. We decline, she said. A ripple of disbelief swept the hall. You misunderstand. The Chorvol responded, light flickering. This is the only alternative to conflict. The human woman met their gaze, one species against many. Oh, she said. It was an alternative to you. She gestured to the table. To this, we did not come here to beg for peace. We came to offer you a chance to step back. The core king shifted, uneasy. Step back from what? The woman paused. For the first time, emotion not fear, her voice, not fear, not rage, regret. From what happens next, she turned away. The human delegation walked toward the exit. No ultimatums, no dramatic flourish, just footsteps echoing through a hall built to intimidate God, and behind them, panic blooming. Stop them. Corona minor envoy, you cannot simply leave. If a Serath speaker recon as data streamed into its consciousness, belated intelligence, suppressed reports, ignored warnings, human fleets that weren't on maps. Weapons never demonstrated. And wars that ended before the galaxy noticed because no one was left to report them. The Chorvol fell into discord as probabilities recalculated. A Char King whispered, voice trembling. They weren't asking to spare them. A realization settled over the chamber like a funeral shroud. They had mistaken restraint for weakness, silence for submission, morality for navy. The doors closed behind the humans with a sound like a toned ceiling. Too late the galaxy understood. Humanity had not come seeking mercy. They had come offering it. And the offer had just been refused. The chamber was designed for surrender. Hall of Convergence drifted at the heart of Galactic's cathedral of impossible scale, suspended within a stabilized singularity. Gravity body bowed inward. Occurred Larry Dench in a delegation that felt smaller than when they arrived by design. This was where wars ended because no one could imagine continuing the notch. The rulers of the galaxy occupied their thrones in a wide crescent, the Varx matriarchs in Chetan and Silk, the Iron Mass strata Lugos of Kar. There's a living constellation of minds. And empires that measure their age in eons, not years, and misunderstood the humans. They had not brought banners, no honor guard, no ceremonial displays of power. Just a single delegation. 7 figures in dark attire, hands visible, posture relaxed. That alone unsettled the room. The Varx matriarch spoke first, her voice amplified through the halls. In absolute, humanity's expansion has reached its limit. Your fleets are outnumbered, your allies are silent. This council has convened to formalize your surrender and preserve what remains of your species. The word surrender echoed, magnified by the architecture. A ripple of approval moved through the rulers. This was how it always went. Resistance, then inevitability, then capitulation. The human representative, a man with tired eyes and a stillness that felt deliberate. Listen, reaction, the core strategos followed. You will disarm. You will relinquish custom test systems. You will accept governance oversight. In exchange, and your home will be spared. The sin of Loom shimmered as one mind. This is mercy. Few are granted it, and the humans were silent, not de-defined, not angry. Simply silent. Minutes passed. The silence here was unusual, dangerous. Most species filled in fear or bargaining or rage. Finally, the Varx matriarch tilted her heads. Do you understand? The human representative nodded once. And She rose to his feet. The others followed him, not hurried, not hesitant. The sound of their chairs sliding back cut through the chamber like a blade. He said calmly, and we refused. The word landed wrong. Several rulers spoke at once. The whole system struggled to keep up. We're a few. You are mistaken. This is not a negotiation. The Strategos leaned forward, armored limbs grinding. You are surrounded by forces you cannot defeat. Not with contempt, not with fear, with disappointment. He said that we came here because we had no choice. The Senate flicker recalculating. You came because resistance leads to annihilation. No, the human replied. We came because we believed you might still choose restraint, but that unsettled them more than defiance would have. The Varex matriarch's voice sharpened. You will not survive what follows. The human inclined his head slightly as if acknowledging a misunderstanding. We are well aware of what follows, he said. You are not. He turned away from the table. Shock delegation began to move to the chamber. This was not pulled through in the models. Species did not walk away from convergence. They pleaded, they postulated, but they did not leave. Stop, commanded the Strategos. The humans did not. The Synod's light fractured as data surged, buried private abilities forced to the surface. And fleets that had never been committed, industrial capacities deliberately underestimated. Conflicts ended without conquest, without spectacle, without witnesses. Patterns emerged, terrifying ones. The matriarch's mandibles tightened. They are bluffing, she said, but her certainty faltered. The human representative paused at the threshold. He did not turn back fully, just enough for his voice to carry. You mistook our patience for Winix. He said, you mistook our ethics for the Gauntlets. You looked across the rulers of the galaxy, and for the first time they felt measuring. We did not come here to ask permission to exist. He continued, we came to offer you a future where you still mattered. The doors began to close. The Strategos felt something cold settle in his core. What have we done? He whispered. The Senate answered, fragmented and afraid. We rejected their surrender. There's none to give. The doors sealed. Silence reclaimed the hall, and on that side, the rulers of the galaxy understood the mistake they had made, not in demanding humanity's surrender, but in assuming humanity had ever intended to. That was the first thing that unsettled the chamber. The convocation sphere hung above a blue dwarf star, layers of force fields holding back radiation and gravity alike. Every surface was alive with motion, holographic sigils of ancient empires. Shifting atmospheric bubbles tailored to alien physiologies. Thrones groaned, forebred to project dominance. This was a place built for noise at declarations, threats, ritualized fury. The humans sat a simple table of polished aloe, 5 of them still, eyes forwarded. The High Arbiter of the Threxian Imperium slammed a clawed limb against his dace. You will answer. He roared, translators struggling to contain the violence in his voice. Your silence insults his counsel, but the human woman at the center did not flinch. She breathed slowly, evilly, as though listening to distant thunder. Around the sphere, other rulers joined in. The veil collected hissed in overlapping voices. You have violated expansion accords. The Oron Triarchy pulsed crimson with aggression. You are outmatched, outnumbered. You delay the inevitable. Threats stacked atop threats, each louder than the last. And on military projections flared the vast armadas encircling human space. Casualty estimates scrolling in brutal clarity. This was theater meant to break resolve. The humans watched, not bored. Not afraid. Present, the Arbiter leaned forward, mandibles spread wide at them. He sneered to the others. They pretend nothing left because they have prey animal freezing before the kill. The 7 rulers agreed aloud. The noise escalated. Accusations, ultimatums, promises of annihilation. The sphere vibrated, but still the humans said nothing. Minutes passed. Then more. The silence began to work its way under armor hides and through energy-based forms. It was wrong. Silence was not how surrender began. Silence not how fear sounded. The Oran Triarch finally snapped. Speak. It thundered. It begged or threatened or pleaded, but speak. The human woman lifted her eyes. She did not stand, she did not gesture. We are listening, she said calmly. Her voice was quiet, but the chamber fell still around it, as if the sphere itself leaned closer. The Arbiter scoffed. You listen while we decide whether you live. She nodded once. And if that is what you believe was all, the argument resumed. Sharper now, the Val accused the Threxians of posturing. The Oron threatened to withdraw support unless the humans were forced to immediate compliance. Old rivalries surfaced. Layered atop the performance of unity, the humans remained motionless, no whispered conference, no nervous glances, no tightening of jaws, just patience. A junior envoy for Lithari swiveled toward him, antenna twitching. Do you truly not understand? It asked, confusion bleeding through its words. They are preparing to destroy you. The human man beside the woman met its gaze. His expression was gentle. We understand perfectly. Then why are you so calm? Delayedly consider the question. Because shouting does not change reality. But the Arbiter snarled, his power, the hour is not yours. And the woman finally stood, the room tense weapon systems flickering to readiness. This was the moment they expected. Defaced, desperation. She folded her hands behind her back. You have spent this entire session telling us what you will do, she said evilly. You have not once asked what we intend to do. Your untriartrated hostility, your intentions are irrelevant. She tilted her head slightly. That assumption, she said, is why you are all so loud. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The arbiter laughed harshly. You think calm makes you strong? No, she replied. Calm makes us clear. She looked around the sphere, at the bickering rulers, the overlapping threats, the projections constantly being revised as alliances shifted mid-argument. You are angry because you are uncertain, she continued. You are shouting because you are trying to convince yourselves. The Vel hissed. Convince ourselves of what? That you are still in control. Silence fell again, heavy this time. The woman exhaled slowly. We have listened to every threat, she said. Every warning, every promise of destruction. You have told us what you would take from us. She paused. And you have not noticed that we not asked you for anything. The arbiter felt something cold creep through his core. Then why are you here? She met his eyes. To see if you could stop arguing long enough to think, and no one spoke. For the first time since the convocation began, the rulers of the galaxy felt the way their own noise of the frantic edge beneath the fear-disguised authority. The humans stood quietly among them unshaken, waiting. And the chamber at last began to understand the calm at the center of the storm was not weakness. It was confidence. And that more than the words themselves, what froze the chamber. The Hall of Accord lay open to 1,000 worlds, its air-laden translation fields and atmospheric compromises. Delegations hovered, perched, coiled, or stood upon gravitic platforms arranged in a wide circle. And at its center of the table, ancient symbolic, scarred by centuries of agreements written in blood and light, the human delegation sat quietly on one side. They had listened for hours. Trees recited, borders redrawn in projection, casual references to Lozerton percentages and population units. Through it all, the humans remained composed, faces still agitated, hands resting in plain view. Then the Velar diplomat rose. Velar wrote, older than most stars would name, their species had never been conquered, never meaningfully threatened. Their authority came not from cruelty, but from an unbroken history of survival. The diplomat's Manos Ximenez, as he elongated head toward the humans, there is, he said smoothly, a cultural matter we must address before quiet and attentive. The chamber humanity, the Veil continuing, bases much of its moral posture on will-sacrifice. You speak of wars and your world's lost, billions dead, as though suffering itself grants legitimacy. A faint stir moved through the alien ranks, was delicate, dead ground. The humans did not react. The diplomat's eyes narrowed in courage. Let us be honest, he said. Your history is not noble. It has fought yourselves for resources, for leaf right, for pride. You burned your own planet's biosphere before ever reaching the stars. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. You speak of sacrifice, he went on, voice cool, precise, but what you truly offer is incompetence, elevated to tragedy. Other species mastered unity before their first extinction event. You required your annihilation simply to learn cooperation. The word settled like ash. A junior envoy glanced at the humans, expecting movement, anger, protest, and at least a tightening of posture. Nothing. The Velar diplomat pressed forward, emboldened by the stillness. Now, he said, ask this council to respect the memory of your fallen, to honor sacrifices born of avoidable failure. Forgive us if we find that unconvincing. The silence, it's stretching long enough to become uncomfortable. The Velar diplomat's question seeping in. Do you deny this? He asked sharply. The human represented as if a woman with silver-threaded hair and eyes worn smooth by time did not answer immediately. She took a slow breath, as if centering herself, then rose to her feet. No sudden movement, no raised voices. You are correct about one thing, she said calmly. Our history is filled with failure. The chamber leaned in. We fought each other. We poisoned our word. We made the same mistakes over and over when we knew better. She met the Velar diplomat's gaze, unblinking. We paid for her. Her voice did not harden. It deepened. Entire generations lost, cities erased, species we never met because we destroyed ourselves before we could reach them. We remember every name we could say, and more than the ones we couldn't. And the Velar diplomat shifted, unsettled by the lack of defensiveness. She continued, you call that incompetence, she said. We call it responsibility. A murmur rippled through the hall. You see, she went on, who do not honor sacrificing makes us proud. We honor it because it hurt, because it cost something we can never replace. She gestured faintly not to the stars, but a word, or dead are not statistics to us. They are warnings. And the Velar diplomat scoffed. Warnings you clearly failed to heed. No, she replied softly, warnings we survived. That landed harder than any shell. We learned unity after catastrophe, she said. Not because we were superior, because we refused to let the cost be meaningless. Her eyes swept the chamber. You, she asked. I've never lost a world. No one answered. How many of you, she continued, I've never stood at the edge of extinction and chosen restraint anyway. The Velar diplomat's mantle dimmed slightly. You insult our past. she said, returning her gaze to him. Because you believe survival without suffering is proof of wisdom. She shook her head once. Survival without suffering is luck. The chamber was oddly silent now. Sacrifices, she said, are not credentials, they are scars. And we do not ask you to admire them. She paused. We ask you not to dismiss them, because every one of them taught us what we refuse to become again. The veiled diplomat opened his mouth, then closed it. The human woman inclined her head, respectful, composed. If you still believe our history disqualifies us, she said. Then that is your judgment to make, boss. She sat down. The humans returned to stillness. Around them, the rulers of the galaxy felt something shift, an uncomfortable recognition that the species they had just insulted carried its past not as a weapon, not as propaganda, but as a promise. And promises, they realized too late, were far more dangerous. It spread through the council chamber like a pressure change, settled at first, then undeniable. The Hall of Sovereigns, vast, radiant, engineered to magnify authority, had been alive moments earlier with overlapping voices, threats layered atop demands of translators to keep pace. Now, one by one, the sounds died, but the central died, and the humans sat motionless, no visible augmentation, no ceremonial armor, just dark formal clothing, unadorned, most austere. They had endured hours of posturing without interruption. Accusations of aggression, lectures on hierarchy, veiled warnings of what would happen if they did not comply. The last threat still hung in the air. Non-compliance will be met with decisive action, declared the supreme void of the Arc Coalition, his bioluminescent crest flaring in practiced dominance. This council has been patient. You will answer. The humans did not. They did not look at one another. They did not whisper. They did not shift in their seats. They simply remained still. Pause stretched too long. Across the chamber, ancient beings exchanged glances. This was not how surrender looked. Species begged. They protested. They raged. They clung to procedure and precedent as though words could shield them. The humans offered none of it. Without signal or announcement, the human at the center table pushed back her chair. The sound was quiet, ordinary. It cut through the chamber like a blade. She stood. The others, some was simultaneously, flawlessly synchronized as though it had been decided long before the council convened. No urgency, no hesitation, just a calm, unified motion. Several alien delegates reacted instantly. Wait, snapped a Vidark's noble antennae, twitching. This session is not concluded. Humans did not respond. They turned away from the table. A low murmur rippled through the tiers. Security fields shimmered as automated systems recalibrated. Unsure what alarms sound. No alarms sound. No weapons deployed. The humans had not violated any protocol. They were simply leaving. You cannot do this, said the Ark, voicing halfway from his throne. This council has authority over. The words faltered as the first human stepped forward. Footsteps echoed across the polished floor. Measured. Unhurried, the effect was wrong. The hall had been built to command attention, to dominate those who entered, yet now it felt smaller, diminished by the quiet certainty of those walking away from its center. Stop them, hissed a delegate from the combined, unease leaking through the translator. They are refusing judgment. No one moved. The humans reached the midpoint of the chamber, their backs straight, their pace unchanged. They did not glance at the towering thrones or the gathered powers of the galaxy. They did not look angry. They looked finished. A junior observer, barely permitted a voice, felt a chill crawl through their nervous system. They're not storming out, they realized. They're concluding something. This is irrational, said a loom-scented voice, its light flickering. You stand to lose everything. One of the humans paused, just for a moment, not turning back, only stopping as if acknowledging that the sound had occurred. Then the delegation continued. That pause did more damage than any speech could have. Data began to flow quietly, automatically across private channels. Probability engines updating. Strategic models recalculated. The new variable that had been considered seriously until now. Humanity non-participatory, not coursed. Gun. What does this mean? Whispered a car warlord, his armor hands curling inward. He did not argue jurisdiction. Delay. They did not threaten. Another replied, voice tight. The realization crept in sideways, unwelcome. Threats were expected from the weak, from the desperate. This is neither. The humans reached the chamber doors. Monolithic constructs of layered force and matter, designed apart only by consensus of the council. They opened anyway, not forcibly, not dramatically, simply smooth. The whole systems hesitated, then complied, as if recognizing an authority they had not been programmed to question. Cold silence poured from the corridor beyond. One of the senior delegates found their voice at last. If you leave now, they called out, unable to keep the strain from their tone. There may be consequences. Thus, the humans did not turn. The last of them crossed the threshold. The doors closed, and the sound reverberated through the Hall of Sovereigns. Not loud, not violent, but final. A seal, appearing at the end of a sentence the galaxy had not realized it was reading. No one spoke, no one moved. The thrones, the lights, the symbol of unchallenged dominion, suddenly felt ornamental, hollow, and they had expected resistance, they had expected surrender, they had not expected indifference. And in the vast, echoing silence left behind, The rulers of the galaxy began to understand the weight of what had just happened, not because the humans had threatened them, but because they hadn't felt the need to say anything at all in a polite tone designed not to alarm. Across the council nexus shimmered into existence, routine telemetry, background noise from 1,000 borders. Most delegates ignored it. Their attention was still lingering on empty space where the human delegation had stood moments ago. And then the tone chimed again, sharper, persistent. A junior analyst from the trial stiffened, mandibles clicking as he stared at his console. His bioluminescence dimmed involuntarily. I counts, he said, voice thin. I am detecting anomalous movement. The Supreme Arbiter did not look away from the sealed chamber doors to find an analyst swallowed. Human naval assets, multiple groups, leaving dockyards simultaneously on mapped sectors. A low murmur rippled through the hall. That is posturing, scoffed a car warlord, folding his massive A, displayed a safe fate. The analyst's fronts trembled. It is not a display. Holographic space bloomed above the chamber. Vast, layered, alive with motion. Points of light ignited one after another, not clustered. It got arranged with unnerving precision. Human fleets, dozens, then hundreds. Some emerged from known shipyard, others appeared from deep space position no one remembered authorizing sensors to watch. Still more surface from regions marked empty, quiet, forgotten expanses between trade lanes. During the center of loom flared brightly. These numbers exceed projections. Another analyst spoke, voice cracking. They exceed estimates. These fleets were not mobilized. They were already deployed. A silence fell like a vacuum. The Supreme Arbiter's crest flickered. Toward where? He asked. And the answer came slowly, reluctantly. Everywhere. Vectors traced themselves across the lane. Deliberate arcs that did not converge in the council worlds. They spread outward. Border systems, show points. Choke Malay hubs. Human fleets were not advancing in a single direction. They were taking positions. Vela Noble leaning, moving forward. Eyes analyst. Demand explanation. Came no response. Can't reply almost instantly. Human communications are quiet. Too quiet. A car starting to intimidate us. We respond in kind. Mobilize. White interrupted the Senate. Its light flickered erratically. Their formations are defensive. The word felt wrong. And in the chamber, Finn. Warlow repeated. Then why here? Finished the Senate. Why now? Data continue to stream. Relentless. Human logistics trains activating. Civilian traffic routed with surgical efficiency. Colonial populations entering hardened shelters. Not in panic, but in orderly phases, long rehearsed. They planned this, whispered a delegate from the Oron Triarchy. Long before today, but the realization crawled through the chamber like cold. These were not fleets scrambling to respond. They were fleets executing a timetable. A senior Valor observer's deeper archives, old intelligence files, dismissed years ago as exaggeration. His voice was unsteady when he spoke. Human military doctrine does not escalate threats. He said just escalates through positioning. If the Supreme Arbiter felt something tighten in his core, positioning for what the observer hesitated. For isolation. The new overlays appeared, triggering as human control lasers went dark, not destroyed, but disabled selectively. Entire regions of space were quietly being cut off from one another. They are not attacking, someone said, disbelief thick in their tone. They are containing. The core warlord's bravado faltered. You do not contain empires without firing a shot. Humans do, the observer replied. They call it restraint. A trimmer ran through the chamber. Sensors pinged again. Another update. Human fleets have reached their destinations. Every major approach vector to council space now glowed with steady, unmoving human icons. Not advancing, not retreating, waiting. The Synode's light dimmed to a fearful who. This is not preparation for war. It said, this is preparation for endurance. A junior delegate whispered. They left so they could do this without arguing. That the truth settled heavy and suffocating. The council had believed humanity will lash out, overextend, prove itself reckless under pressure. Instead, humanity had gone silent, and the galaxy was being reshaped around that silence. A final data packet arrived, flagged as non-hostile transmission. It can no threats, contain arrests, no demands, just a single line repeat across every channel. Human fleets have assumed safeguard posture, non-interference advised. The Supreme Arbiter felt fear, true fear, for the first time in centuries, not because the humans were attacking, but because they had moved everything into place as A and still had not.